But let's get into George and why you're here, George. And you know, there's been a lot of talk lately about the debate, and we thought we had one coming, but it didn't happen. So,
yeah, I mean, I actually, you know, I know it's a controversial thing, and to tell you the truth, it's the hits on my website in the last week have like doubled because it's been in the news. But I really want the debate just to talk about the issues. I don't want to debate the debate. I want to talk about, you know, substantive things. Like, you know, Kathy and I, we're both Republicans. We probably have similar views. I think the difference is priorities. I mean, my main priorities, and I have a lot of different issues I have positions on if you go to my website, voteboag, VOTEBOAG.com. But, you know, my three biggest issues are I want to cut the sales tax as opposed to the income tax. I'd like to cut the income tax to 5%, but I think a priority should be cutting the sales tax down. Eventually, I'd like to get to 3%. Maybe in 2 steps, you know, go 4.5 and then 3. That might be a little aggressive. But if not that, do, you know, maybe 5, 4, 3. But I think 3% should be the goal. I think that will stimulate the economy and create jobs more than cutting the income tax.
Let me hit you with a question right with that, okay? With the cuts comes reduced revenue.
Right.
And so where would you cut the budget to support those cuts?
Well, the budget this year went up $1.9 billion. Had the sales tax been cut to 4.5%, which again may be a little aggressive, maybe you go to 5 the first year, that would have cost $1.4 billion. So you actually could have cut the sales tax to 4.5% and still spent $500 million over last year without cutting the budget.
Now, but clearly, with going with that, just from your point of view, obviously, when we heard Kathy just speaking, one of the things that she discussed was increasing local aid. How do you do that?
Actually, I'm glad you asked.
How do you do that?
My second of my 3 priorities is I want local aid to be 20% of the budget. A couple of years ago, it was 18, 19%. Now it's down to 16, 17%. I think there really has to be a benchmark floor for local aid. And I think 20%, it's a nice number. It's easy to remember. That way towns have stability from year to year. The budget will never go down, obviously. So if anything, it'll go up a little bit. But now they have to wait from year to year in the town to see what they're going to get. Some years it goes down. You can't do long-term planning if you don't know what you're going to get. So again, if you have a floor, you'll be able to figure out a little bit what you're going to have next year. Now again, you're not going to be able to go in the first year, just, you know, do all these things. Like I say, maybe you won't be able to cut the sales tax to 4.5, but you could probably get it down to 5. You could increase local aid. So I think, you know, by the end of my first term, I'd like to see that 20% figure. I'd like to see that, you know, 4 or 5% sales tax.
If we had Kathy here, we could ask her what her thoughts were.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Now do you know where she stands on that issue? Where
well, she mentioned the 5-5-5 plan, which, you know, philosophically I don't oppose. I mean, if that was the only alternative on the table, I'd take it. But again, the 5% income tax, that's a 23-year-old issue. I mean, as Republicans, we've been running on that issue for years. And yes, the people voted for it. I think they'd like the 5% income tax, but it doesn't seem to be a highest priority for people. So I think the 2 directions I'd go in to get the economy moving a little bit better is cut the sales tax, makes us more competitive with New Hampshire, makes us the low tax alternative to our other 4 border states. And the other thing I think we really have to do to help businesses out is address the unemployment tax. So I'd give both of those a priority over the sales tax. Excuse me, the income tax.
Now, one of the things, obviously, whoever wins this this election in the primary is going to have to face Colleen Garry in the general election in November. If anybody knows, the past, not the last budget, but I think the last couple of budgets, she's actually voted against the budget because of the sales tax and voted against that. I guess my question is, how do you compare where you would stand to where she stands on that issue?
Well, I put this issue out when I was running, and the first question I heard from Colleen was your question, where would you get the money?
Right.
And you know, again, I was taught 4.5%, she supposedly favors the 5, so I mean, the money's not that much different.
Okay.
But the thing, you know, Colleen, you know, I like Colleen, I respect her, she's had a good career in these last 18 years, but she's on the Ways and Means Committee. You know, she's an 18-year incumbent, she's, you know, become part of the establishment on Beacon Hill. So, you know, this year you look at the election, you know, you have the presidential, the Senate election. So, you know, if you want to change things, you could vote for Scott Brown, you could vote for Mitt Romney. If you want to send a message to Beacon Hill, having an 18-year incumbent who's a member of the Ways and Means Committee lose would just shock people on Beacon Hill. I mean, if you look at the last election, the number of Republicans doubled from 16 to 32. That picked up another to make 33. And if you look at this year's debate on the budget and things like that, I think last election sent a message to people that was heard loud and clear on Beacon Hill. And again, Colleen's a good woman, you may like her, but basically by voting for her, you know, Deval Patrick and Robert DeLeo see that as a referendum on them.
Okay, so essentially, and I don't want to paraphrase, so tell me if I'm wrong, so basically it's to make a change, you need to make a change.
Yeah.
There's nothing specific that you're saying that's
well,
necessarily different?
I mean, you know, Colleen voted for the health care thing, I wouldn't
Okay.
have voted for that. Colleen voted for the CPA, I wouldn't have voted for that. Now, my
So
thing with the
you're not in
by the way,
favor of
let
the
me just say a
CPA?
thing about the CPA. CPA is a local issue.
Right.
Towns want it, that's fine. I think the money should come from the town tax, which it does, and currently it's been funded up until the last year with a tax on deeds dedicated to the CPA. Now, Kathy was wrong. It has not been a light item out of the general revenues. That's a new thing this year because what originally happened with the CPA is it came in as a 100% match on the local tax. But what happened is between the economy reducing the number of real estate transactions and the fact that so many more towns participate in it, it's now 148, the money for the match has decreased over time. So we were down to about a 22% match. They've appropriated $25 million to bring it up to 50, but this is one of those programs that was started with no idea what it would cost. So to bring it up to 100% match would require another $50 million. And as more towns adopt it, that cost is going to grow. I'd rather have that money coming back as unrestricted local aid without strings. So I have no problem with the CPA if the town wants to keep it. But if the town wants to keep it, the town should fund it without the money coming out of the general revenue money.
Just from a theoretical standpoint on the CPA, by spending on, and clearly I support the CPA tax for what it does for the town. One of the things I think that's maybe an unintended cost savings is when you keep a space open, you don't have, the towns don't end up having to pay for roads, schools,
Fire police,
all of the things because it's open space.
Well, as I say, I don't oppose the CPA as a program. I just think the town has has tax
Right.
they raise money on. Dracut's actually been very good about how they've managed it. Some of these other towns just get that money and they
There's
just
a lot of
spend
good
right
people
through
on
it.
that board. That's
They're
what it
very
is.
smart people on that board.
Absolutely, I must agree.
Yes.
You know?
But you know, the other thing is, by making this out of the general fund line item, if you look at who gets the most CPA matching money, it's the towns with the high property value. It's Cambridge, Nantucket, Wellesley, Newton.
Not to get into a debate
I'd rather
about
get that
Right.
money in unrestricted local aid.
Not to get in a debate about the CPA and but those towns voted in a larger percentage to be taken out of there. You know, they voted for 3%.
But they also have a higher property tax. So I mean,
Correct.
if you're doing a match on property tax values,
Right.
the ones with the higher values are going to get the bigger
Yeah.
match.
Actually quick, because you've got about a minute, if you want to reach out to the voters and ask for their vote, you know, let them know the date and all that, and we'll take it from there.
Well, again, I'd like to thank you guys for having me in on such short notice. I really appreciate it. And as I say, my name is George Boag. I'm running for state representative in the Republican primary. The primary is on a Thursday this year. It's September 6th. I ask for your vote. If you have any questions about my issues, I have a website, VoteBoag, VOTEBOAG.com. I have probably 15 or 20 issues on there if you want to go look them up. If there's an issue there I'm not addressing, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to get back to you with my position. And again, please vote for me on Thursday, September 6th.
All right, great.